So again, we must get away from these days. That's just the bottom line. Because the Lord required, even in the old days, He required us to do something. Let's go to Deuteronomy, the 12th chapter. The 12th chapter and verse 28. It says, when the Lord thy God shall cut off the nations from before thee, whither thou goest to possess them, and thou succeedest them, and dwellest in their land, take heed to thyself that thou be not snared by following them. After that they be destroyed from before thee, and that thou inquire not after their gods, saying, how did these nations serve their gods? Even so will I do likewise. Thou shalt not do so unto the Lord thy God, for every abomination to the Lord, which He hateth, have they done unto their gods, for even their sons and their daughters they have burned in the fire to their gods. See, this is the type of things we do. See, this is what the Lord is telling us we should not do. Okay? At all. Now the question also becomes, can we add days? Should we add days? Because a lot of people think Thanksgiving is innocent when they don't think that's pagan. Most people know that Christmas and Easter, they kind of know, and Halloween, definitely Halloween, they know that something's up with that day. They know it's not all the way right. But Thanksgiving, look, Thanksgiving is pagan too, and furthermore, you shouldn't be adding any days or anything. Let's look at that mistake that was made in the scripture. Let's go to 1 Kings, the 12th chapter, and the 25th verse. Now this is Jeroboam. Jeroboam came into power to rule over the kingdom of Israel after the nation was split in two. You had the northern and the southern kingdom. All right, you had Rehoboam in the south, and you had Jeroboam in the north over the 10 tribes. Okay, and the people were commanded, the Lord commanded us that we appear 3 times. Okay, and one of those times was the Feast of Tabernacles in Jerusalem to worship that feast. All right, the other one was the Feast of Unleavened Bread, and in between it was Pentecost. So now this is what Jeroboam does. He tries to add his own day, like many people do today. Verse 25 in 1 Kings 12, it says, then Jeroboam built Shechem in Mount Ephraim, and dwelt therein, and went out from thence, and built Penuel. And Jeroboam said in his heart, now shall the kingdom return to the house of David. He feared that the people that were commanded to go to Jerusalem would leave, and then they would somehow revolt against him, even though the Lord had actually given him the 10 tribes. If this people go up to do sacrifice in the house of the Lord at Jerusalem, then shall the heart of this people turn again unto their Lord, even unto Rehoboam king of Judah. And they shall kill me and go again to Rehoboam king of Judah. So he has this fear. So what does he do? Whereupon the king took counsel and made 2 calves of gold, and said unto them, it is too much for you to go up to Jerusalem. Behold thy gods, O Israel, which brought thee up out of the land of Egypt. See, he did the same thing that Aaron did once the children of Israel were delivered from Egypt. In the wilderness, Moses is gone for a short time, and they built a golden calf. Now here he builds 2. And he established another feast. I'm going to skip down. And Jeroboam ordained a feast in the 8th month on the 15th day of the month, like unto the feast that is in Judah. Now what feast is that? That's the Feast of Tabernacles in the 7th month. But see, he made his own day. And he offered upon the altar, so did he in Bethel, sacrificing unto the calves that he had made, and the place in Bethel, the priest of the high places which he had made. So he offered upon the altar which he had made in Bethel the 15th day of the 8th month, even in the month which he had devised of his own heart. He made it himself, just like Thanksgiving, just like all these other pagan days, and ordained a feast unto the children of Israel, and he offered upon the altar and burnt incense. See, that's the same thing that people are doing today. Well, okay, what's wrong with Thanksgiving? Look, it's pagan. Don't deal with it, period. Let's see what the consequences for that were. Because there's always consequences for what you do. It's always consequences for going against the Lord. And you look at our communities and you see the consequences of our false worship, of our disobedience. You see it every day. You got kids killing kids, crack infested, poverty, sickness, disease, miseducation, no education. All that is a result of the curse that was placed on us for our disobedience. Read Deuteronomy 28 and see if that's not talking about the so-called African American. But Hosea, the 10th chapter, and verse 1. Listen to the words of Hosea. Israel is an empty vine. He bringeth forth fruit into himself. According to the multitude of his fruit he hath increased the altars. According to the goodness of his land they have made goodly images. Their heart is divided now. shall they be found faulty. He shall break down their altars. He shall spoil their images. Right? Because Israel was disobedient. For now they shall say, we have no king because we fear not the Lord. What then should a king do to us? They have spoken words, swearing falsely and making covenant. Thus judgment springeth up a hemlock in the furrows of the field. The inhabitants of Samaria, now this is talking about the place where Jeroboam ruled, shall fear because of the calves of Bethlehem. See, those were those calves that he set up all the way back then. For the people thereof shall mourn over it, and the priests thereof that rejoiced on it, for the glory thereof, because it is departed from them. It shall be also carried unto Assyria, for a present to King Jerob. Ephraim shall receive shame, and Israel shall be ashamed of his own counsel. As for Samaria, her king is cut off as the foam upon the water. See, Assyria carried the northern kingdom into slavery and captivity. Those are so-called lost tribes. Well, they are the lost tribes in 722. Okay, so that was part of that consequence with slavery, and we constantly worship falsely, just like he did the customs that are pagan and false, and then we wonder why the Lord is not blessing us. We have more churches per capita than anybody, I would venture to say, any other people, and yet we are not blessed. We are not blessed. As a matter of fact, we are cursed. And then we wonder why. We get together and we wonder why. What can we do? Look, you can turn back to your God and turn away from this paganism. Turn away from this false worship. Turn away from this idolatry. That's what you can do. That's the consequence. All right? Let's look at Christmas. Here's another one. I'm going to get this book entitled Into Egypt Again with Ships. It talks about Christmas. And let's look at the history of Christmas. This is on page 113 of Into Egypt Again with Ships. Alright? Or 114, excuse me. It says Christmas is celebrated as the glorious birth date of Christ. However, the commemoration of Jesus' birth was never mentioned or commanded in Scripture. Furthermore, at the time of Christ's birth, there were shepherds in the fields tending to their flocks. During December, the climate in Palestine is so cold that it is unlikely that shepherds would attend their flocks during this time, nor was it their custom. Furthermore, the 25th of December, as the exact date, was not arbitrarily chosen as the birth date of Christ. Throughout the ages, pagans have attributed significance to the time around the winter solstice. In particular, the day December 25th, for instance, in ancient Babylon, Nimrod's birth was celebrated on December 25th. In Egypt, it was Horus, the son of Isis and Osiris. In India, Krishna and Buddha. The Sabians of Arabia commemorated December 24th as the birthday of the moon. In Rome, there was the Feast of Saturn, or the Saturnalia, which lasted from December 17th through the 24th. On the Julian calendar, the winter solstice was on December 25th. December 25th eventually was observed as the day of the unconquered sun, or Natalis Invictus Solis. Roman soldiers, public servants, and merchants worshipped the Persian god Mithras also on December 25th. This day was directly attributed to Jesus by way of the Roman Catholic Church doctrine. The choosing of December 25th as the birth of Christ was merely strategic. Pagan worship was concretely ingrained in Roman life. To combat this, as an institution, the Catholic Church built churches where pagan temples stood, incorporated sacred days, and adopted heathen practices. So today, although the names of Saturn, Mithras, and Sol have vanished, the practice of decorating homes with evergreen trees and gift-giving during this time of the winter solstice has remained. All right, so that's where you get the brief history of Christmas and its origins. All right, it has nothing to do with Christ at all. Nowhere, you should not be putting in your home a Christmas tree. That's an old pagan custom. People used evergreens because, hey, evergreens were symbolic. They kept their leaves or stayed green during the whole year, even through the winter. And people who worshiped the sun, who feared winter and the darkness of winter, hey, they kept these evergreens up. Even the Egyptians did it. And this was an idol in their home. The scripture forbids us to do this. Read the words of Jeremiah. Jeremiah 10:3, it says, "For the customs of the people are vain. For one cutteth a tree out of the forest,